This podcast is produced by OnPod, a video content studio near you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are here with Tara Shannon. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So you are a label founder, an artist, a songwriter, and you do producing. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, what are the biggest changes you've seen in how artists break into the music industry today?
Well, the music industry landscape has completely changed, and particularly over the last 5 years. I think the answer lies in the question in the sense that artists don't really break in the same way as they used to. Whereas, you would sort of get discovered and signed and radio would be involved and you'd have this sort of moment where an artist breaks through. Now we're seeing more artists that are focusing on content creation, for example, like on TikTok and stuff, that may have a viral moment that may then attract labels and people that can help them keep that going. So we see that version of things. But what I'm seeing more is slow and steady. So less of that, immediate spike, but slow and steady, building community around your music, and then sort of leveraging that community to generate income in some way and sort of build a life around that where you're building a sustainable living. But it's more focused on building community and niche audiences around what you do.
Okay, so you don't have to be worried if you make a TikTok and with your new song and then it doesn't immediately go viral.
Yes, exactly. Like that. I mean, how those algorithms work and those platforms work are like a mystery to most people. They usually, to get any kind of traction, usually requires a healthy budget behind in the ad spend. So if they're out there, posting and trying to make something go viral, I wouldn't focus on trying to make something go viral. You can't control that. But what you can control is really great content that's creative and elicits an emotional connection. And if you do that consistently, then eventually you will get some traction in some way.
Okay, so with that being said, what strategies do you recommend for new artists trying to infiltrate or stand out in such a crowded digital landscape?
Yeah, it's not going to sound sexy because it's really just about, number one, the songs. We are huge at Willow Sound. We're huge about the songs. A lot of artists kind of just write a song and then think, okay, it's ready, or they play it on their social media. And we're very big advocates of really, really rewriting and digging deep for what you want to say and what you want to put out there. So the songs, first of all. And then who are you? What do you have to say? So things around brand identity. So brand identity is the complete expression of the feeling of you that is experienced through things like your merch and your social media and your songs and your show. So branding is not the color of your logo. That is one expression of your brand identity. So having something to say, knowing who you are and having a cool way to say it and being really clear on that is going to help tremendously cut through the saturation that is out there.
Okay. I just had a thought pop up. What if you change as a person? What if you, over time, I feel like to have this brand, you have to have a certain amount of consistency because you're reaching that target audience that whole time. Mm-hmm. How would you recommend someone deals with changing?
Yeah, well, a really well thought through or expressed brand identity will be firmly rooted in the core values of you as a person. So our core values don't tend to change hugely. You may have a new perspective of things, and it depends on your age too. So if you're doing this and you're 12, how you're going to see the world and how you feel about yourself at 12 is obviously going to be different than when you're 25. We hope, so if it's the core values, you're not going to deal with huge shifts like that. But you can bring in different perspectives. So brand identity has an element of fluidity to it if it's authentic. It's when people start to chase. They're like, oh, that artist is doing that and that looks like it's working, so I'm going to try to do that. That is a dead end. It's not sustainable to be chasing what other people are doing. The journey is internal. It's discovering who you are and then finding the courage to be brave enough to share that with the world, the uniqueness of that. That's where the gold really is.
Yeah, copying people never pays off.
No, you may get a short-term gain if it's a trend and it's something that seems to be working at that period of time, but it's not sustainable. It won't last.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
With streaming and TikTok and independent distribution platforms shifting the power balance, what's the most important things artists should focus on right now if they want longevity?
I think being really, really clear on what success looks like for them. like defining success and not just defaulting to what the highest levels of the industry tell us what success looks like, right? So like Taylor Swift, that's success. Well, there's only one Taylor Swift, so that's not going to be success for most people. So figuring out, what does it look like for you? What does my day look like? What is going to have to happen in my day, in my week for me to feel satisfied and feel like I've arrived or I'm successful? What does my life, what will the flow of my life feel like? Those kinds of things. So once you define what success looks like and feels like for you, then put together a strategy that gets you there. That focuses on that. So what we see is consistency, slow and steady, consistent creative content, really working on your craft, focusing on your songs, making sure they stand up. Don't record everything you write. Not everything we write is worthy of being recorded. Even the pros will say the same thing, So yeah, slow and steady is what most of my coaching. So I coach artists. I'd say 80% of my coaching is about slowing down, connecting with yourself, keeping your feet on the ground, and mental and emotional health support around social media. Now, using this tool that we have, but in a way that is safe for us.
Yeah, it could be very draining to be on social media all the time and not getting the recognition that you think that, one, I don't know, I don't want to say deserve, because it's just, to be seen is to be loved. And if you're not being seen, then it's tough sometimes.
Yes. And those platforms are designed to wire your brain that way so that you get a dopamine fix when you get the likes or the streams or the views and stuff. So learning to use social media with the emotional and validation component disconnected from it. So I teach my clients and artists to look at social media for what it is, and data analytics. The power is in the data analytics, not whether you got enough likes or somebody commented on stuff like that. So helping them understand how to use the tool in a way. It's like I often joke, I'm like, an axe is a great tool, if you're chopping wood to burn in a fire to stay warm. But if you swing the axe at your leg, not such a great tool, same tool, different application. Yeah. So learning to use social media in a way that you're not giving your power over to this mechanism and this thing that you can't control, and letting it define how you should feel about yourself as a person. And so, so when they learn these tools and navigate it, and even then, sometimes we all need to take a pause, because it's very soul sucking. It can be very draining on your time and energy. But it still is a really great way to build your audience. It's probably our best way right now, other than live shows and touring. Mm-hmm. That is always going to be the best way, I think, to really build your audience. But not everybody can get out on the road and tour,
For sure. I like what you said about the axe, because also social media could really do a lot of damage to you if you could.
Absolutely.
It could hurt you. So.
Absolutely. We had a massive viral moment with one of my artists on my label, Willow Sound. And it was like all the way up to American talk shows. And it was a very challenging experience to navigate. And so it can be really harmful.
Yeah. You need media training for that.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You've worked as both a performer and a label founder. Where do you see the biggest pitfalls that emerging artists fall into when approaching the business side of their career?
Oh, many. That's why I have so many clients. Understanding the core principles of business is so essential before you ever go knocking on a door, to work with a label or publishing company or management or anything, because the history of the label artist relationship there's been a huge power imbalance, and there still is often in a lot of cases. So what we encourage artists to do now, starting, is to just really understand the fundamental aspects of how business works. And that if you focus on your business and you build a following and you're selling merch and you're selling tickets and you've worked markets slowly and surely, an entity that is bigger than you will want to partner with that, because if there's money to be made, they will want to partner with that. And I think the thing to remember is that business is about money. It's about trade. And it's about earning income. It's not about how you feel. It's not about your feelings and, those kinds of things, which is tricky, because as an artist, you are the product. So it's like, if I sold shoes, the shoes are separate. They're an inanimate object. You can more easily make decisions about that or see it objectively. But when you are the product and business decisions are being made about you, around you, without you having any input into that, that can cause a lot of, distress and be very, very unpleasant. So really understanding the basics of business, focus on building something so that if you're ever at the table negotiating with a label or something, and you have the option to get up and walk away, you always want to be negotiating when you can get up and walk away and nothing changes in your life and you're okay with that. Mm-hmm. But partnering helps you get to the next rung of the ladder, or, move up and affect more people in the world, which can be amazing. But you always want to be negotiating when you have something to trade.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking right now of like Kesha and what Britney Spears had to go with, especially if you're young. You have to be able to, one, know how to do business, because there's contracts involved and it is affecting your life. So you don't want to be stuck with something. And I'm sure that's why, labels like yours, like Willow Sound, it's probably so much more for, like, you're a woman, you own this business. Mm-hmm. It's keeping people safe and it's keeping people on the right track rather than, using them as that product that can, and I like the way that you say keep things consistent.
Yes.
If you're an artist and you are the product, you will probably burn out if you work yourself too hard as well. So it's so nice to have someone on your side that is able to help you navigate those things.
It's essential. So we run Willow as a co-op. We're 5 artists together and we support each other and help each other. And I'm still the CEO and I still run it, but I always say I'm not raising artists, I'm raising entrepreneurs. And so the greatest compliment to me would be when they don't need me, when they've got enough figured out on their own. But there's also the community aspect, like you're saying, about leaning on each other, because, when social media is overwhelming for one of us, another one will step in to help, this kind of thing. So what we have is really rare and beautiful and kind of happened organically from this group of artists that I was working with in a coaching capacity first. And then when I was putting out my own music, I just formed a label. And so it happened very organically. But it's a really beautiful, really wonderful thing in a highly competitive environment, because often in bigger label environments, the artists are competing with each other for attention, for resources from the label, for opportunities. So it's not always conducive for a community connection with the artists on a bigger label, depending on, what the strategies are, where the audiences are. So we're very boutique, we're very small. And being women-led does matter, like you're saying, and those big artists you mentioned, they wouldn't have been coming into those contract situations with anything at the table yet. So there would have been a huge power imbalance. And so as they got older and as they recognize their power and realize that they are what people are buying, that's when, you'll hear in the news about like unrest and stuff. Taylor Swift is a great example of her trying to buy her masters back. Okay. First time, and not being able to do that the first time around. She finally has now. So there's lots of different ways that the music business works. And so I work primarily in sort of the independent model where it's like being a self-employed person and you're running a small business. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's amazing because you can still get to teach people and show people the way things work. And like you said, lean on each other. So that's great. The music industry has always been tough, but what unique challenges do you think today's generation of artists need to be most prepared for? The saturation is probably the most frustrating element, because technology has made it that everybody and their dog can make a record on a laptop in their basement and it sounds pretty darn good. So there aren't gatekeepers in the same way that there used to be. So saturation is super frustrating, because when they upload their song to their DSPs, it's like a drop of water in all the world's oceans. Nobody's going to know it's there unless you're making waves. So being overwhelmed at how saturated it is, that's what I see primarily. And it kind of coming more to the realization that the older model of slugging it out until somebody with power discovers you and plucks you from the masses and elevates you to stardom and you're rich and famous and all your problems go away. Labels aren't signing like that. There's not a lot of focus on development in the same way, because they don't need to take the financial risk, because artists can do it on TikTok. So why would they risk putting money into an artist when they have a proven model over here, because somebody in their bedroom has done a great job with a great song and it's gone viral and there's money to be made right away. Mm-hmm. So, I think for new artists now, just
as quickly as possible coming to the recognition that you are in this on your own, which is great. And eventually one day, maybe you can partner with a bigger label, but to just really dig in and just do something cool and creative and build a life that you love waking up to every day.
Yeah, if anyone and their dog can make music, get your dog and start turning tables in the basement. So, make it go. Yeah, nice. From the producer's chair, what separates artists who thrive from those who burn out?
Really good support, a support system, really good self-care practices, being grounded, having a more clear sense of who they are. The ones that burn out are often chasing something or trying to become something that maybe they're not, or they're in a rush. There's this perpetual feeling of rushing, that I see with artists. And I'll say it probably, 50 times a week, like, what's the rush, And then when they stop and think about, oh yeah, though there is no rush, I'm like, you're completely in charge of this timeline. Like what invisible, clock is there? The industry has put so much emphasis on youth that I think a lot of people feel the pressure of youth, especially women. So sometimes I think that's part of it, or they're going to miss their chance or miss their opportunity if they don't do it. I'm like, that's all imaginary and an illusion. Like I'm in my 50s and still making music, and putting music out. So, that's pretty much an illusion. Mm-hmm. So I think the ones that burn out, they have to learn more about, connection to self, being grounded, realigning with more clarity on what their why is. Like, what's their why? Why are you doing this? Are you doing this because you want to be famous? Okay, well, that's a whole other strategy, and you could easily run out of steam on that road. Are you doing this because you can't imagine a day going by without creating music or singing a song or something? Well, then that's a different thing. Mm-hmm. So having clarity on what their why is helps differentiate between the two.
Yeah, and it kind of brings some more power back to you, right? Like you are in charge of this.
Yes.
And that's a great feeling to have, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You often speak about self-care alongside music, which we talked about a little bit.
Yeah.
But why is well-being so critical for success? And what daily practice do you personally have to stay balanced?
Great question. I learned all of this the hard way. I'm the person that if you tell me the stove is hot, I'm going to touch it anyways, just to be sure. So I burnt out twice in my life. I had 2 serious burnouts. So I come by this knowledge honestly and through the hard road. And so self-care is obviously paramount. It's everything, because not only as a human being, just existing, but you are the product as the artist. And so if you go down, everything ends, it's over, it's done, so you really, really need self-care, to be successful. And I often say, to be successful in the business of music, you first need to be successful in the business of you. Like you really need to know who you are. So self-care can look like many different things for people, like understanding yourself. Like, are you an extrovert or an introvert? Like, how do you recharge? How do you feel depleted? Understanding those aspects of yourself. What do you need to feel whole? What do you need to feel grounded? So for me, meditation is a daily practice, and that's, everything to me. And also, connecting with friends and people that I just love to be around is important for me and for my well-being. Creating, writing, coaching is something that I really, truly love. Like I can be coming off a day doing my festival work and go into like 5 straight hours of coaching, and I'll be exhausted when I start. And by the end of it, I'm like, that's it, we're done. Like so knowing what fuels you and what makes you feel alive is a great way for self-care. And so meditation, walking, the basics for me, trying to, eat food that is better for me. I'm not very good at that part, but I'm trying, right? Yeah. And then what you consume, not just food-wise, but movies, television, social media, books, like being more consciously aware of what I'm consuming, for my own sense of well-being.
For sure. Is there if someone was in the middle of burnout, is there anything that you would tell them to kind of, like you said, sometimes people are really worried about time. And if they are burnt out, maybe they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Is there any advice you would give them?
Yes. Well, knowing the signs of burnout. They're easy to find online, but emotionally irregulated, like crying for no apparent reason, those kinds of things, not sleeping well, disassociation, like you're in conversations, but you're kind of not, like those kinds of signs. Your emotions are all over the place. That's a big sign too. Exhaustion, obviously, body pain, those kinds of things. I mean, if you look it up, you'll find a better comprehensive list than the one I'm giving you, but knowing the signs is huge. And then deciding that you matter enough to do something about it, like making the choice to take care of you. And for some of us, that's very hard to make the choice to love ourselves enough to stop, because worthiness is connected to productivity in our culture. So when you're super, super busy, like the word busy is like an elite word, or if I don't get all of this stuff done, then I have no value, So if you have that going on for you, challenging that, looking at that. And if you have the signs of burnout, like make changes quickly as you can, because if you persist down that burnout road, the longer it is going to be to recover. So the sooner you identify it and you make changes, the better you're going to be for that.
Right. Take care of yourself, snap back.
Exactly.
You're
oxygen
product,
mask
right?
first.
Like,
yes.
You gotta. Yeah. I was just thinking of that.
Yes.
Fill your own cup before you fill someone else's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And find out what fills your cup too. Like for me, it's like, there's an amazing book called The Artist's Way, which is Julia Cameron. And she wrote it, I think, in the late 70s. And it's become a mainstay, and everybody, it's a kind of book that finds you when you need it, if that makes sense. And she has amazing exercises in there. And one of them is morning pages, which is great. And another one is to fill up your well. So to go do something where you're not giving creatively at all, you're just filling up. So for me, it's going to the movies by myself. I love the movies. And there's nothing that makes me happier than just sneaking in and just watching a movie by myself in a big theater. I feel so filled up. And so finding that thing for you, because going to live music shows doesn't do the same thing for me, because I'm working. It makes me work. Even if I love the band and I'm always analyzing the show and the setting, and, I can't turn that business brain off sometimes. But a movie I can totally turn my mind off and just let myself be taken away by the story. So find the thing that fills your cup, whatever that is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Could you share your songwriting process, like what it looks like from idea spark to finished song?
Sure. It's a bit different each time. So I keep like a hook book, an idea book, and which is on my phone. It's my notes, really. And so every time I hear somebody say something a certain way, or I'll read something a certain way, or a thought comes to me, I'll write it down. So I collect those ideas in my daily life. And then when I have dedicated time for writing, if it's by myself, piano is my first instrument. And so I'll sit at the piano and kind of just work it out. So sometimes I'm inspired by like a melody from playing the piano, or sometimes I'm inspired by a lyric. So depending on what my starting point is, my process will be a little different. Sometimes I'll just flesh out the lyric enough to have a foothold on something, and then to try to work out melody around it. If I'm in a co-write situation, then I will come in with some ideas. And you kind of feel out the room a little bit, depending on who you're with. Most of the times it's strangers, and publishers have put their writers together. And so you spend a little time chit-chatting. You can kind of sort of feel out the room and figure out what role are you going to play in that combination. So and then you throw your ideas out and you work it out together. Sometimes I wake up with a song idea. It's just rolling around in my head. So it's just different. It's the challenges in my life right now today is making enough time, to write with all the jobs that I'm, focused on right now. So, but it makes me feel very peaceful when I do make time for it.
That's good. So it fills your cup, I guess.
It does. Songwriting definitely does.
That's good.
Yeah.
I have a personal question, I guess. How do you know that the melody that you're playing or the song that you're writing isn't something that you have heard before subconsciously and you're just kind of regurgitating it? Like, how do you separate those things?
Well, you can't possibly know all of them, because millions and millions of songs are written, and so you can't worry about that when you're writing it. So, and there's melody in our speech. So speech has melody in it naturally. So when you are writing melody to a phrase and you're writing and you're capturing the natural melody that lives in the phrase, the way you're saying it, you'll be closest to the essence of the spirit of what you're writing. So you don't have to worry so much about trampling on things. However, with technology these days, once you do record it or do a voice memo or something like that, there are tools now that analyze our songs to death, down to like every single data point, you know? And yeah, so, and then it comes down to popularity. So like if you're Ed Sheeran, right, and you've heard the court cases that he's sat through on this issue, you know, like him defending, he's been sued for, copyright infringement, but won because he's brilliant and made his case. So you can't really worry about, you can't write from that space because you would never write. Mm-hmm. And then when you're playing it for people, when you start playing it for people, especially if you're in songwriting communities, and if something in your song peak something for somebody, they're like, you know what, that's really close to song XYZ. You should have a look at that. If it made them think of that song, then usually we go back and look at it and see. Because I think the copyright rule now is maybe six notes, consecutive notes, maybe 9 consecutive notes. Okay. So there's rules around the copyright infringement on that. So if you're a professional and you're wanting to put it in the world, then you would go check those things. But from a creative standpoint, you really just have to write from the creative standpoint and worry about the other stuff later, because you could drive yourself crazy. Because the chances are, statistically, with the amount of songs that you may never hear all those songs, but statistically, you probably did write a melody somebody else wrote. But as far as absorbing it, you know, what floats around in our subconscious, everything we are is as a result of what we've consumed. Yeah. Everything. The way we speak, you know, what we say, when, how, all of it. So music's the same.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm sort of a more visual person, and I know what a circle looks like. And just because a circle's a circle, I draw a circle, but someone else that draws a circle, they might shade it differently. Yeah. They might, you know, do some other stuff. I don't know. Yeah. Make it look like a bubble. I don't know. So just because it's kind of the same doesn't mean it is the same.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah. So that's why we have copyright laws around that to define that. Yeah.
That's good. And one more thing. Yeah. Creative is good too, because sometimes a phrase, it's how you make it feel. It is kind of an art, because just the way it makes you feel doesn't mean it's going to make everyone feel like that. And you're kind of portraying it like that. But also you have to have a certain amount of skill to be able to put that word or phrase, like the melody within a sentence, to music. Like some people, what is it? There's a saying, I couldn't hold a tune if I put a handle on it. So I feel like, you know, it is a skill as well. So that's important to remember.
It is. And that's the magic of songwriting. And that's why we're all, like, true songwriters are obsessed with the craft. It keeps us up at night. We wonder about the mystery of it all. You know, we're trying to figure out, you know, I mean, I'm connected to the country music community. So imagine, how can you come up with another song about whiskey that is fresh and new? And you know what I mean? And when you hear a writer do it, like a Chris Stapleton, like Whiskey and You, for example, you're just slayed and you're like, what? And how did he do that? You know, like, so we're just in love with the mystery of it all. And it is quite magical. And it's an amazing craft. And knowing the effect of language and over melody at a particular part of the bar with meter and rhythm, there's so much depth to the craft of songwriting. Mm-hmm. It's a lifelong discovery.
Mm-hmm. Which is why people love music so much.
Yes.
There's so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
Let's go back to collaboration.
Yeah.
How does that shape your music?
Oh, collaboration is a wonderful thing, especially if you get to collaborate with people and humans that you love, which I get to do every day, which is awesome. So for me, the most collaboration, collaboration in a lot of places, but songwriting, like co-writing, would be the place where I collaborate the most. And that really helps, because I know I'm very good at certain things in songwriting, but when I'm in a room with somebody who's like, let's say I'm really good at lyric and they're really good at melody, and you combine those things, it's very enriching. And your writing only gets better as a result of that. And then collaboration in the studio, when you find like producers that you love to work with that are amazing, they can just read your mind and you don't have to finish your sentences, you know, that kind of stuff.
That's you, right?
Yeah. I don't know, some days maybe. But I have amazing people that I reach out to. And also, I really like matchmaking for my clients, for my artists, like finding the right producer match for them that's going to bring out the best in them. That's a form of collaborating as well too, like really seeing who my artist is and what's going to work for them in that moment in time. There's something really, satisfying about that. So music is, I think, all about collaborating at all levels, especially like when you play with a live band. Like
there's a lot of people at once.
It is.
Time. Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess it's more of a vibe than just like, timing all the time too.
It is. There's so much unspoken. There's so much connection that's happening energetically.
Yeah.
With people on stage. And when you're lucky enough to play with really great musicians, like that's an addictive experience, live shows, with the audience. So, and the ultimate collaboration is with the people who listen to your music. So your fans, your audience, that's why we create. We create to connect and to be heard and to be seen. And so that's the ultimate collaboration.
For sure. Yes. I'm thinking of this in a couple ways. Like, you are seen and you're loved. You are the brand. And also, like, how are you connecting with it? That's really neat. That's a really neat thing to do. So your new album, Cover Stories, coming out October 5th, you said?
October 4th, I'm performing at the National Arts Centre in Ottawa.
Okay, nice. Yeah. It's a tribute to Canadian female artists. Why did you choose this theme, and what do you hope listeners take away from it?
This came about during a breakfast conversation with my management at the time. This was a couple years back now. And we were just sort of brainstorming what project to do next and what would make sense for me and for my audience. And Peter said, what about, he said, you just sort of threw it out there. He's a brilliant marketing guy. And he said, what about like this tribute to Canadian female artists? And I was like, I would love that. And then I just thought about it some more, and I said, well, who would I put on this record? And it just came together so clearly, so quickly, and it made so much sense for so many reasons. And we really wanted to make it a love letter to Canadian music. And and so then he reached out to Jim Ed Norman, who ended up saying yes to doing the project, and he produced Anne Murray's record. So what's super cool about the whole project is the music that he was involved with has been part of the soundtrack of my life for decades, but we obviously had never met or didn't know him. And so to be able to work with somebody that made music that impacted your, like You Needed Me was my father-daughter dance at my wedding, for example. Well, he produced that track, so it's one example of many. But so it was so cool, from an idea at a breakfast table to sort of fleshing out a bit to finding the right team, and then going through the whole process of deciding which female artists and then which songs of theirs, because we wanted the whole album to feel cohesive and to tell a story. So that meant not all of their number one hits would be the ones we would cut. So a couple of them are deeper cuts that people wouldn't know about them. So super rewarding experience. The album is absolutely beautiful. I realize it's mine, so of course I'm going to say that, but it really is a beautiful record. And Jim Ed just did a stunning job, all the musicians, and I'm very proud to present this collection.
Mm-hmm. That's like a real full circle moment. Like, he kind of shaped you, and then like you started working with him because it's just, the connection is there.
Absolutely.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
If listeners take one lesson away from your journey as an artist, a mentor, and an entrepreneur, what would you want it to be?
If they took one thing away from just my story in general,
I guess.
Yeah. I would say, find your happiness. I would say whatever makes you feel joyful and alive and fully alive, that is your internal guidance system. That's your emotional guidance system telling you, yes, this way, go this way. We have this built-in GPS system. It's like our emotional guidance system. And so when we feel that feeling of passion and joyfulness and just feeling totally alive, that's like breadcrumbs in our life to follow. So if music is that for you, you'll never be able to get rid of it, because I tried walking away from music because I have 7 kids and they were all in competitive hockey, and I just couldn't. I was like, something had to give. And I ended up getting really sick, physically, mentally, emotionally. And I didn't realize that I needed music in my life like I needed to breathe. It wasn't about a tour bus or being a rock star anymore. It was just, I need music in my life to feel whole and human. So if music is that for you, then you need to have it in your life in some way. So find a way to have it in your life that makes sense for you. But follow that passion, whatever it is.
Not a lot of people do that. Like you said, or maybe we covered this. I feel like it was nuanced, but like, capitalism is, people are the product, and then you could really get beat down for that. So if you're following the wrong path, you're going to burn out. So pay attention, eat the breadcrumbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Eat them up.
Yeah.
And that's also why I called the record Cover Story, because, you know, we tell ourselves stories. So the thing that you daydream about, the thing that you wish you could be doing, or, you know, you have conversations with your friends and it's like, the one day I'll do that, whatever that is, you know, we tell ourselves stories, reasons why we can't do it. Like, oh, well, I don't have enough money, or maybe when I retire, or when the kids are older, or I'm not good enough, or whatever the list is. Well, those are our cover stories. Those are the things we tell ourselves that prevent us from following that passion. And so for me, one of the reasons why it's called Cover Story is because, you know, recognizing that in my own life, you know, how I've been stopping myself from following what I love to do for all of those seemingly logical reasons. And so I think we all have that. We all do that to ourselves a little bit. We tell ourselves these cover stories.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's beautiful. Your own lesson is now everyone else's lesson. You bring light to that. Now, your book, you're the author of You in the Music Business, which is currently being used alongside college material at Berkeley and Algonquin.
Yeah.
What was your main goal in writing this book, and who's your audience?
So the main goal was to basically document and put together the thousands of hours of coaching that I've done, because I was starting to see very distinct patterns with artists. They were all struggling with the same stuff, the same internal voices, the same self-doubt. And so that was the original point of inspiration, is to just write all the stuff that I coach about or give workshops about. And so my audience would be, funny enough, I thought my audience would be just, you know, independent music creators, you know, trying to figure out the music business, but it's gone a little wider than that. And I've had people who are in other creative disciplines read the book and say it was just as helpful to them. Because it's not super music centric, in the sense that it's not a book that's about, this is how you make it in the music business, or this is how you become a star. It's nothing like that. It's like, this is how you stay grounded and sane while you travel this road, you know? And so other creatives loved it, or it resonated with them, because those sort of principles or core principles translate no matter what your creative medium is, you know, so that was really surprising. But I would say my core audience is anybody, you know, any music creator that is looking, and not just music creators, actually, because managers and people have read it too, and they love it because it helps them understand their artists better. Mm-hmm. So anybody connected to music, I think, you know, or a creative discipline will get something from it, I believe.
And I think too, like, not even just creative, a lot of the concept that you've talked about, like you said, like you are an entrepreneur, you are business savvy and business focused and all these things. And even running a business, if it's not a business that you like, and a business that, you know, fills your cup every day, that you want to go with your internal compass to get, like, you need to realize that. And I'm sure your book can also help with that. Yeah. And if you love music, you kind of connect it there too. But
yeah, but it's really more focused on what's your why, and who's going to care, and why are you doing this, and then it has some basic elements and structures of how the business works, you know, so some basic elements that you need to understand. Okay. But it's mostly challenging your thought process and challenging your belief system around the music business, and so that you can see more clearly, and hopefully, you know, after reading the book, they're able to define what success looks like for them. Because, like, I was offered a record deal a million years ago in my early 20s, because I was chasing this thing that everybody kept saying, you need a record deal, you need a record deal. So I put out a record and we chased this record deal thing. And sure enough, but I had my three oldest, they were little at the time. And like, when they were describing it to me, they were like, yeah, it's 2 years, no family, no friends. So this is before internet, before social media. This is like, you're going to be on the road for 2 years, forget your life. I was like, I can't do any of that. I can't do any of what you're asking. You think, you know, that I'm going to be expected to do, because I didn't want to give up being a mom. That was my choice. So success for me in that moment was choosing being a mom. Mm-hmm. So that a record deal wasn't something that looked like success for me at the time. So you really have to define what that means for you. And hopefully, and my hope is when people read the book, one of my artists said after she read the book, because I forced all my artists to read it, said she read it and she felt peaceful and powerful at the same time. And I went, oh yeah, that's what I was hoping for.
It made its mark. It did what you wanted it to.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good
yeah.
feeling. Amazing. Okay. One last question for the
Sure.
podcast. Is there any one person in particular that changed your life perspective or direction?
Wow. My life perspective or direction, I would say all 7 of my children, hands down. My children are like the best little soul teachers ever. And I've learned everything about myself through being their mom. And they're just incredible little humans. So they're not so little anymore, but they're, I think that by far being a mom to my 5 boys and 2 girls has shaped who I am for sure. I've had incredible teachers along the way too, like my music teachers, Mr. V and Madame Massé were fantastic from the music standpoint. But as far as being a human, I would have to say my kids.
It's funny how your shared genetics can make so many variations.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. How many personalities? That's crazy.
Total. And every Dr. Gabor Mate, who's awesome, he says every child grows up in a different family. Yeah. So even though you're in the same family, depending on what your position is in the kids, you grow up in a different family because the family unit is constantly moving and evolving and changing.
Yeah.
So everybody grows up in a different family.
Yeah. Everybody gets a different perspective.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
That's wild. Well, thank you so much for being here today and giving us so much insight into the music industry and just life in general.
Well, thanks so much for having me.